Hello everybody on YouTube, welcome to my first video. Today we're going to be talking about morality and the way it works from a reason-based, non-theistic worldview. As I'm sure a lot of you atheists have been asked, I've also been asked, where do I get my morality? Now, a lot of atheists get very angry when somebody asks them this because it's offensive, but if you think about it from a theistic point of view, it's a very legitimate question because they assume their morality comes from a higher power. And without a belief in that higher power, how do we get our morality? It doesn't quite click in their brain, which is, it's fine. It didn't click in mine either until I was an atheist. So I'm gonna, instead of ranting, I'm gonna actually explain where reason-based, logic-based morality comes from. Now, before I start, I'm gonna say the problem with reason-based morality isn't where does it come from or how do we get it, but rather how do we implement it. But if you think about it, that's the problem with all morality. Faith-based morality has problems implementing itself as well, and they've tried many methods, the violent methods like the Inquisition and the Crusades, and irritating methods like societal oppression, so on and so forth. So the problem with morality at all isn't where does it come from, because it's pretty easy to get to it one way or another. Some ways are arguably superior than others, but we'll get into that later. The problem is how to implement it, and that goes for all morality. So on to where reason-based morality comes from. There's something out there called praxeology. And I'll read the Wikipedia description to you, and I'll kind of, if it's confusing, I'll say it in layman's terms. Praxeology is the deductive study of human action based on the notion that humans engage in purposeful behavior as opposed to reflexive behavior like sneezing and inanimate behavior. So that's the basic description. There's a little bit more, and there's something else I'll have to read to you in a minute, but basically the explanation for that is it's the study of the way humans make choices and the way human action is based around those choices. It's a deductive study, so on and so forth. The one more detail that is important for this reason-based morality explanation is this. The notion that humans engage in acts of choice implies that they have preferences, and this must be true for anyone who exhibits intentional behavior. Okay? So that's huge. That's very important. That's a hugely important point. Anything that makes choices has to have preferences, right? This is where morality comes from, is because we all make choices, we all have preferences, right? And so those preferences are assumedly, I don't even think that's a word, but whatever, we can assume that they're for the benefit of ourselves, one way or another, whether biologically for survival or mentally for pleasure. Those are our preferences. Now let's take these preferences, let's take these into account, and let's try to justify a crime. Through preferences, okay? Since the question of morality really is what can we do to other people, the ultimate question, and to some people, what can we do to other organisms, or anything in general, depending on how far you want to go with it. Let's try to justify a crime. Let's justify this, the ultimate crime in this day and age. Let's try to justify rape from a praxeology-based morality, okay? So, everybody has preferences, and we're going to try to say it is moral for John Doe to rape Jack, whatever. It's a gay rape. Big deal. Let's try to morally justify, say it is morally okay, not just workable, but morally okay for John to rape Jack. So, if everybody has preferences, John, the rapist, has his preferences, and Jack, the victim, would have his preferences. Now, if John is going to say that it is morally okay for him to force Jack to have sex with him, how is he going to do that? Well, at that point, his preferences would have to be of a superior merit to Jack's. In order for it to be morally right, not just possible, but morally right for John to rape Jack, John's preferences have to be superior to Jack's. They have to be, otherwise it is immoral. Now, at this point, the question is, how do we decide whose preferences are superior to whose? How do we decide that whose preferences are better than other people's, of a higher merit? So one argument would be that this person is more moral, so his preferences are better, or her preferences, whatever. Well, at that point, that's circular logic, because we're trying to define morality, and so defining morality on the basis of a higher morality doesn't work. He's more moral, and that's how morals work. It doesn't quite work. So the ultimate conclusion we have to come to is that everybody's preferences are equal, and that infringement on preferences is ultimately wrong. So rape would be an infringement on Jack's preference to not be raped. Now, an argument would be the rapist has a preference to have sex with the victim. And by the victim not allowing him to have sex with him, isn't that wrong from a praxeology-based morality? No, it's not, because those preferences, there is a method for them to match up, and that is through voluntary human interaction. In order for any interaction between humans to be moral, their preferences have to match up. They have to work together. He wants to have sex with this person, and that person also wants to have sex with them. It's a matching preference, and it's moral then, because then they both consent, and that's the way it works. For transactions of a monetary persuasion, a non-moral infringement of preferences would be a robbery. One person's preferences infringe on another person's preferences. But a moral one would be an actual transaction, a buying. His preferences to get that money, whatever, and his preference is to have the object that he has. So they exchange money for object, preferences match up, and everybody wins. That's the way reason-based morality works. I hope I explained that well. Thank you for watching. I will hopefully be doing more videos in the future. Like, subscribe, do all that junk. I'll see you later.